From Kansas, Deontay Wilder gets the TKO 7 against Tyrell Herndon, and a workman like TKO 7, not the explosive one punch highlight reel type knockout you're used to seeing from Deontay Wilder. He did get a knockdown in the second round that reminded me of his left hook knockdown against Charlie Zelenoff in that infamous quick sparring session all those years ago, Raheem. But no, all jokes aside, I think Wilder tonight he tried to just take it back to basics tonight. And to start with the good, he made good use of his jab. It was busy, and overall his work rate was busy. He's a guy who usually would fight at a very slow pace and just look to kill you with that one right hand at some point, that missile. But in this fight, he used his hook a lot more, and he used the jab a lot. But now to get, I guess, to the bad part is not only has his punch resistance shown it's taken a big hit in the last couple years with the scary knockouts to Zhang and Fury, but tonight the big takeaway was he doesn't have his primary weapon anymore. That missile of a right hand, the hand speed, the torque, and the snap on it, it just isn't there anymore like it once was. So not only does he have that punch resistance issue that you don't really get back as a fighter, but he also, at 39 years old, just doesn't have the athleticism, the speed, and the snap that he once had. And that kind of got lost because with Wilder, that people overlooked that at 6'7", he had good speed at once upon a time. And that's why that right hand was able to land. It covered a lot of ground and it was very explosive and had a great snap on it once upon a time. And tonight it looked like he was pushing his shots and the speed just wasn't really there. Herndon at 6'3", at a certain point, really just had nothing for Deontay, really from the opening bell. He touched him a few times in rounds 3 and 4, but didn't really go anywhere with it. And man, the referee, Ray Corona, did not want to stop it. He really wanted Herndon to go out on his shield and show him something, and finally he just wouldn't, and he waved the fight off. But yeah,
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you think about tonight, Raheem?
Boxing will humble you at some stage. That's what the fans and I am often reminded of. The fact that neither one of us, you nor even I, more likely even than you being the connection with Wilder, are anywhere near his most recent fight tonight, speaks to the mountaintops and the valleys in this sport and just how quickly it can all descend and to what level you can find yourself in what look like a fight you might see from a 10-0 fighter, maybe a 7-0 fighter. Like it looked like a fighter building his career, not a former world champion
Heavyweight champion.
who knocked out, I don't know what the percentage is now because after the Fury fight, but at some point had knocked out every opponent he had faced while retaining the WBC heavyweight championship. I mean, you have to remember the heights that this guy was at
Hmm.
and the level of intimidation that entered the ring with him at one point to a full packed arena once we got to the Tyson Fury fights and a couple of fights before.
14.
Granted, Wilder, to be fair, was never a massive superstar draw, but to see him in a half-packed Kansas arena was kind of jarring for me as I laid in my bed and like with one eye open on a fucking stream watching Wilder do his thing.
On the
And
Trap House stream. Literally, that was the name of the channel.
well, Sean, we're not supposed to, you know what I
Right.
mean? We paid for it,
Uh-huh.
as you should, as a good boxing fan. And so the jarring bit was that, like, I'm realizing, like, damn, I felt emotional. If I'm gonna be honest, it was just like, obviously I have this connection with this guy, and to see him there, I was like, fuck, this isn't great. But hopefully, and it was a real fucking difficult ask because there was almost no good outcome that was gonna make us be like, oh, Wilder's back. That option wasn't even on the table. There was nothing he could do. If he had knocked him out in the first 10 seconds, or if it had been an incredible fight back and forth and he knocked him out in the last 10 seconds, nothing Wilder could do tonight would have said Wilder is back. The only thing that could happen is that Wilder is fucking clearly done. Like a tragedy could have struck, and the finish of his career could have been with a fizzle and a whimper. That didn't happen, I don't think. But what we did see was underwhelming. I thought that he's gonna need two or three or more fights to build back. When I say I was looking at a fighter who was like maybe in his seventh fight, well, I think if Wilder is to return to the elite heavyweight level, we're gonna have to see him build back gradually because yes, the jab was working early, but you say his greatest weapon was his speed and the straight down the pike accuracy with that right hand and his athleticism. And of course, all that is true. But the weapon that really isn't there is the intimidation factor, the danger. Like this guy was able to evade the right hand fairly easily for 6 rounds. He, of course, wasn't
He actually ate a
mounting
number
any.
of them, and but because Deontay doesn't have the things I was talking about on that right hand that he once had, he actually ate a dozen or so right hands in this fight. And even the last
Partially
fight,
blocked. I mean, like,
yeah. But
yeah, I don't know
still,
that he
it
got
found the home a
clean
couple of times, and it didn't have that effect it once had.
because the fear isn't there. The fear stiffens you before the right hand lands. And I think as Mike Tyson, like many fighters with big punches, would enter the ring with that massive intimidation until somebody shows them to not be an unbeatable monster. There's more on the right hand than just the power. It's also the psychological mind game of you thinking as soon as I get touched with this thing, I'm going to sleep. And fighters react like that. I think we can look through the history of big punchers and find
I'll
on
push
several
back just
occasions
a little
people who
because
got knocked out by
it's the
punches.
sweet science, and I think he was just generating more torque. And so the science of that, more torque, more force. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying so much as saying it's not all in their head. That
No,
right
no,
hand used to be, you know what I mean? Right. It's like,
no, for sure. And you
right.
don't get that until you knock guys out legitimately in a string of knockouts that intimidate your future opponent. So, yes, the power and the shot was clearly there and effective. However, I'm saying that it is a combination of two. Both things can be true. And the way that I know it's true is because when these guys get beat, Tyson included, and that veneer of invincibility and that intimidation factor differs, then the opponents immediately start to have more success. And the opponents don't improve, they actually get worse
Finn
and do
Kovalev in
better.
recent times.
I think the
Yeah,
examples are endless, really.
yeah.
And so, with that said, I was looking for something to cheer on Wilder about, and it was hard to find. Like I thought the jab, I would say, is the thing. I was like, okay, he's comfortable with the jab. Granted, he's not going to ever be a precise boxer, so he's a little awkward with it at times. He's pawing with it in an awkward way, but the majority of them were decent. Obviously, Malik Scott is not in his corner. I've been a champion of Malik Scott. I can't defend that anymore. Like, he's just not the trainer for Wilder. I don't think that that makes him a poor trainer. I think that what I was asking of Wilder was more than he's going to ever be able to do, which is learn the fundamentals and execute like a more technical boxer.
I
That
think
was a
Malik
mistake.
I think Malik did an admirable job in part three with Wilder, and it seemed like the main adjustment was, hey, like jab to the body early to set up the right hand up top. And it was like the fact that Malik only had a short time to make a couple adjustments, it worked in their favor in that third fight. And that's why he went from getting blown out in fight two to being competitive in fight three. But then beyond that, Malik tried to rewrite the whole book on him and teach him a million new things. And then that's where it just went left. Like, okay, like you just said, he's not the trainer for Deontay now. Like, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, the fourth round was interesting to me because Wilder, I think, starts to get a bit frustrated, tired of not being effective with that right hand, and the elusive Herndon was getting on his nerves, and so he started to press a little bit. And immediately when he starts to press, his defense just falls apart. Now, Herndon wasn't going to test his defense because he was coming back with zero offense, but I was just seeing how many punches he could have been hit with if he was in there with a even half offensive minded fighter. And I was like, this is not going to get it done. That's what I mean by he might need three of these type of fights as he steps up and level a very mediocre competition incrementally to work out who, and I'm talking about Wilder now, to work out who he is now, right? And see if any of this is going to work with a class heavyweight. So that was also a bit demoralizing. Like, man, this is far from good enough to for anybody whose name I know for him to beat, right? The just the lack of defense, and then in six, which was the pivotal round, the just recklessness and amateurish type of desperation for the knockout was also just, at that time I would have thought that Wilder has enough experience and even he has enough technical understanding of boxing to take one half step back, give yourself room to punch, and then precision shots. Like you fucking Herndon was ready to go. He was looking for an excuse, but Wilder just wasn't giving him a good enough reason. And then Wilder smothering his own punches, falling over his shots, holding his head down. And Grant, to his credit, Wilder had a few moments where I saw him think about holding Herndon's head down and just hitting him with the illegal, ugly, nasty uppercut that would have been totally illegal. It probably would have got him the knockout. So to his credit, Wilder's, he didn't make that kind of poor sportsman move and still try to get a legitimate shot in. But it was so sloppy. He was so porous in his defense, and he was smothering his own work, and he just looked amateurish. Again, looked like a fighter in his seventh fight. And I disagree about the stoppage. I thought the stoppage was incredibly poor. Like that punch, yes, Herndon was ready to go, but this ain't the amateurs. Like, let him get chin then. Like I don't think in that moment he was
Herndon
about to
body
get
language
hurt.
wise and
Yeah, but this he's
was
not your
begging
mom.
for Ray Corona to stop the fight though for at least 30 to 45 seconds. Like,
I mean, he sat on the ropes, he laid on the canvas, but
yeah.
he kept getting up, and I'm not sure he doesn't make it 10, flopping around and holding and fucking getting pushed down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a funny image in my head. I got so just a few things I'll say is, the bet. So it sounds like, and I agree with you, you don't think making a run and because when you're talking about three or four fights to build on, I feel like what you're really saying is he should retire because what can he build on? It's like George Foreman in his 40s was able to achieve the unthinkable because he's super high boxing IQ and all kinds of new wrinkles in his game under Archie Moore, cross arm defense. He had one of the greatest chins in boxing history, even into his 40s, able to take 14 punch combos from Holyfield. And it's like Wilder's chin is not going to be that. It never was quite that. It used to be good. And now it's probably not, from the knockouts he's had. And he's not a heavy-handed puncher like George was. He, again, back to my earlier point, there's two, there's the Mike Tyson type of puncher where the speed really helps generate the power. And then there's the George Foreman, I don't need any speed. I'm just heavy-handed. It could come slow and it's still going to thud and knock over a building. Wilder is more the former. He's more like Tyson. He needed that speed to help generate that power. So he's not gonna pull a George Foreman. And it feels like the fight they're building him towards is Anthony Joshua. And I think, I got to favor Joshua just because Joshua could still generate some snap when I watch him. Even though, his punch resistance isn't very good these days. It's two guys well past their best, but Joshua is younger. And I think, is the favorite there. I just want to make one last point about Wilder because this isn't the part of his career where we're saying a whole lot of positive things, right? And I think a great realistic scenario for him would be Larry Holmes, Buster Douglas. They fought in Middle America and against obscure opponents off television, but they ended their careers on their terms. Even if the rest of the public wasn't watching, they put together a streak of wins to end their career. Even Tommy Hearns, I think, headlined a card or two in Detroit into the 2000s with his son co-headlining. And these aren't generating the like to your point, that was a great point you made that I hadn't even really grasped and thought of 5 years ago, right before the pandemic in 2020. We're at the MGM, and it was the center of the sports world that weekend when he rematched Tyson Fury. For a minute there, the heavyweight division felt like the old days. We were in the middle of a trilogy that was going to produce historic, memorable moments. I still think his third fight with Fury, what was it, like 7 knockdowns, not that many, but close.
Five. And
Five is
one of the best heavyweight fights I've ever seen in person.
absolutely maybe the best fight I've ever attended, along with the other fight I attended with you, Pacquiao Marquez 4. Those two stand alone for me. What I'm gonna finish for a while, I would like to see him real. That's the realistic ending here. Why not end it like Holmes did? But a lot of heavyweights used to end their careers this way, fighting off TV but winning and ending when they say and I'll just say that last this we used to when I was growing up in boxing, we romanticized these limited punchers, right? And they didn't even have as much success as Wilder did. But guys like David Tua and Ernie Shavers and Ron Lyle, these guys were commended for what they were more so than ripped on for their limitations. And Wilder, it deserves to be noted his limitations. But I'm just saying, to me, he'll go down as one of these great punchers. Not a great heavyweight, but a great puncher. And he did have the green belt for a good amount of time too. So yeah.
I'm not writing off the opportunity or the possibility of a Foreman-esque finish for Wilder.
Wow.
I'm not writing that off with the poor analysis of his performance or the poor performance in my analysis of that,
I didn't see
depending
that one
on where
coming.
you come down in the comment section.
I
It's
was making so
because
many assumptions. I was like, oh, Raheem wants him to retire. No, 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 no. Raheem thinks he
no,
can do what Foreman did, possibly, possibly.
I want him to do both things, ironically, because you took the words out of my mouth in that there are two options. However, both could be true in this case because while he is creeping against 40, there is also a moment coming, I believe, in the heavyweight division where a lot of these belts are about to get dispersed like lilies on a water creek. And there will be opportunity. I'm talking a year from now. And so, yeah, it isn't going to be instant based on what I saw tonight. But give him a chance to do what you're talking about with the Larry Holmes type of trajectory, where, yeah, he talked about mental health in the post-fight interview, and this is mental health for him. He's saying in the ring is therapy. Well, the truth is therapy should be in the gym and glory should be in the ring. But right now, at the level of his competition, maybe the ring is where he gets his confidence back, where he gets his identity back, where he finds out who he is again. His corner looks completely different. New trainer, or at least, not his regular trainer. His wife's gone. His new chick is in the corner, and I don't know her, but whatever. You know what I mean? It's like he's in a small hall show essentially in Kansas. Like we're watching this shit on a fucking stream. Nobody's talking about it. It's a restart for sure. It is a rebuild from the first couple of blocks. You know what I mean? And the guy looks somewhat amateurish. So I think that's because he's trying to find his identity again. And I don't mind him finding that in the ring. And I think watching him get incrementally better as he rebuilds and becomes whatever this last chapter of Deontay Wilder will be. I will not be one of the people who is like, oh, he needs to fight so and so, and when's he gonna be? No, let him build for a year. Like I don't need to see him fighting anybody whose name I know for a fucking year. Let him be busy, get that confidence back. Let him
Off
figure out
Broadway.
what his style is now, and what works well enough for him to get those spectacular knockouts, clean shots again. And while that's happening, I think he becomes a better person, a better man in his mind. And if it never does get to another world title shot, or even if he got one and lost it, I think if he were to be able to reclaim his identity in the ring and his confidence outside the ring of who he wants to be as a man. And I think that's where we are. That's why he was so easily dismantled of late because he had an identity crisis. That would be well worth another 5 fights, which is probably the end of his career no matter what. I think he's got maybe 5 fights left in him if he goes the route we're talking about. That allows him to live the rest of his life with his head held high, knowing that, he did a thing and had a journey, and that's all good. You know, with that said, a year from now, we don't know where Joshua's going to be either. I mean, if he fights Joshua right now, he's going to get destroyed. Yes, I know Joshua can be chinny, but Joshua just has too many skills for him right now. Joshua will be way too confident. Joshua does have some defensive responsibility, and Wilder is not going to break Joshua down with that shit we saw tonight. So, yeah, that fight to me right now is just a terrible idea, and I hope that Shelley Finkel doesn't allow Wilder to go for that. Like, just don't fucking do it. Don't do it. You know what I mean? Even Dave Allen, like David Allen right now, I think is in the conversation for a possible Wilder matchup. You
I
know,
like another Tyrell Herndon. Like I think,
yeah, I like another two time. Well,
yeah, yeah,
incremental
no, two,
steps.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
You know what I
yes.
mean? Somebody slightly better than Terrell, but not much. And then somebody slightly better than, you know what I mean?
And
Like,
he could fight another Tyrell Herndon, and then maybe give Jermaine Franklin a call.
this is what I'm talking
So,
about. You know what I mean? And then maybe
no
in the
offense to Tyrell Herndon,
fight.
who would chin both of us, by the way, right? Like,
Well, yeah, we're not professional fighters. We're not former
yeah, yeah, yeah,
heavyweight champions. We're not,
yeah.
knockout
Let's
artists.
let's
But we
keep.
are damn good knockout analysts.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, God, what's my boy that he started fucking blubbering in the press conference after he knocked him out? Uh,
Oh, uh, is
you
it
know.
not Chris Ariola? Not.
No, no, no. I'm saying Wilder started blubbering in the press conference after he knocked out this guy. Is his
Oh,
name?
Luis Ortiz.
No, it's a white guy. It begins with his
Oh, Hellenius.
Hellenius. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think maybe like a Hellenius rematch or something is 3 fights off, and then you get into like, okay, then maybe the David Allen, and then maybe you finish with a because I think Joshua probably will claim one of those heavyweight championships once they disperse. Because
Think so?
whether Dubois or Usyk wins, they're not going to be able to hold on to that and all those belts like that. Those mandatories are about to start shooting out, and there's going to be opportunity. There's going to be opportunity for people to.
Joshua will be heavyweight champion again. Raheem saying it.
I think it's because there will. I think probably Dubois or Usyk. If Usyk wins, I think he's gonna go away, and all the belts are gonna fucking go, and then you're gonna have 4 belts floating around, and all this mandatory
Yeah, he'll
fucking
definitely get a crack at it if
positioning.
he wants it.
They're gonna get a crack at it, right? And so I think a year from now, the heavyweight division championships could look very different, and there's an opportunity for Wilder. Then that might even be for a title, Wilder versus Joshua, or Joshua Wilder at that point,
Right.
But right now. I'm happy to see Wilder just rebuild himself. And I am not rushing to see him in any kind of strong competition. I think what we saw tonight was a little sad, but I see a light at the end of this tunnel. Uh, and he should walk towards
Guess
it,
like
not run.
what I'm trying to say for Wilder is not even so much shooting down a Joshua fight or trying to climb the ranks or anything. It's like it reminds me of Jamal Charlo coming back recently. Yeah, Jamal, he's calling out Canelo, but that's not really what Jamal's comeback is about. It's about just going out with your head held high and on your terms in the sport. And just pulling yourself together the right way through using, like you talked about Wilder using it as his therapy. Yeah, doing that, using the ring as your therapy, putting together the best camp you can in front of you. And yeah, if you get some momentum together and you get a Canelo fight if you're Charlo, or if you build up a head of steam and build on this and look better in your next couple fights and you look competitive for a Joshua fight, that's cool. But what this should really just be about for Deontay is, finishing things the right way with his head held up high.
You're Charlo. You don't want your last image of yourself in boxing to be crying in the press room in Vegas after getting slapped by a Caleb Plant. If you're Wilder, you don't want your last image of yourself in the boxing ring to be doing a fucking spin and then getting knocked out by Zhilei Zhang at the end of your pirouette. You want to be able to recognize the guy in the mirror, the once intimidating, the once masterful monster, the once man that you imagined yourself to be as a child. And while you might never reclaim that former glory, you can reclaim your identity. And that's what boxing allows you to do if you're willing to work at it and take a humble step back, reconstitute yourself, rebuild, and bring it to a close on your own terms. Yes, that final win has to be when you look in the mirror and are satisfied with what you've done. So I don't want to stand in the way and I don't want to talk shit about Wilder's opportunity to do that. He's earned it, and I'd like to see it happen.